Hello and welcome back to On The Grid Podcast, Season 4, Episode 2. So it's going to be our first sort of roundup episode of the new year, of the new series. Joined with me, as ever, is Adrian Keita. How are you today, sir?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. It's quite weird, We're still quite a bit away from any racing action. Doing a bit of a roundup. I mean, there's not been a hell of a lot to talk about in F1 because liveries aren't released yet. That's another month to wait. No preseason testing or anything like that. But we've got to muster something up to keep the content going. And hopefully this is a little bit of a filler to kind of ease ourselves into the upcoming season.
Indeed. So, some of the big news that's broken over the last couple of weeks is Gunther Steiner and him leaving Haas. I want to get your take on this before I give my opinion. What do you make of it? What do you make of Gunther leaving Haas? He's been there from the start since, 2015, since they joined F1. So 10 seasons as Haas boss, and he's moved on. He's left the team. As Gene Haas put it, they need a change in at the top there. So what do you make of it?
When I saw the announcement, I'm not gonna beat her out of the bush. I was very shocked. I was very surprised to see that Gunther Steiner was kind of sacked and let go of by Gene Haas. As you put it there, Gene Haas said that he wanted a bit of a change at the top. And we've kind of seen that throughout the last couple of seasons with some of the teams, like for example, Ferrari, second Mattia Binotto. We saw it happen at Williams. They've obviously employed James Vowles. Andreas Steller's now at McLaren instead of Andreas Seidel. So these things happen, and I don't think they necessarily happened enough at Haas for it to make an impact. As you've alluded there, Gunther Stein has been there since from the very offset, from the start. He's been team principal since 2015. So it kind of bamboozles me what sort of direction Gene Haas is wanted to go in. But then again, I don't see it as a bad thing. Gene Haas is notorious to keep his cards very close to his chest and keep money quite tight. As Haas is kind of the smallest team in F1. I think financially, due to obviously sponsorship and Gene Haas himself. But the decision nonetheless, quite a shocking one. But I think if Gene Haas wants to go in a new direction, then so be it. And it's only a good thing that it's been released 2 months prior to the season starting and not right before the season starting, because it could have been a bit of a whirlwind ride for Haas if it was closer to the season. But overall, the announcement shocking. Gunther Steiner, I don't think he deserved it. But if Gene Haas, if a team owner wants a new direction, then his decision is final. And unfortunately, Gunther Steiner got the sack, and he's been made to walk, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest shocks is the fact it was done between Christmas and New Year, and Gunther Steiner hasn't been given the chance to go into the factory one last time to say thank you to all of the engineers who's been there over the years. I think that's really, really poor considering, the service he's done. Obviously, the last couple of years have been very difficult for Haas, but given his service to the team, to show that level of disrespect is awful from my point of view. But that's what Haas have to say. It's actually interesting that Gene Haas has said that the team doesn't need new investment; they just need a new direction of management, which I find baffling. Considering, I think there was a quote from Kevin Magnussen when he came back and said, the pit crew equipment is from like 2017, so that's 7-year-old supplies. So obviously it's going to be slower than the equipment that's used nowadays from other teams. And it's just little things like that which make me think, yeah, maybe he doesn't actually know what he's doing in running the team. And I think he's just using excuses and he's not prepared to put the funds in necessarily to help them, to give them a fighting chance. Because how many times did we see it last season? The Haas car wasn't terrible. In qualifying, you got two drivers there that could put it in the top 10, particularly Nico Hulkenberg. You know, he had a similar number of Q3 appearances to Sergio Perez, who was in the quickest car. So it was their race pace and their tyre wear that let them down. But yeah, it's very poor from them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I think you've got to look at it one of two ways for Gene Haas. He's obviously the sole founder of Haas, and he's the only kind of stakeholder in the company. So whether he's going back to the whole kind of pit crew equipment, whether he's doing some saving or something, it goes back to what I said beforehand, where he keeps his cards very close to his chest, and he doesn't like to spend a hell of a lot of money. That's also why Mick Schumacher, I think, kind of was let go of, because Mick had a hell of a lot of accidents, and kind of the value of his car being rebuilt was clearly too much of in excess of what Gene Haas wanted to pay on top of a driver's salary. There's also the case of Nikita Mazepin, but that's a separate case on its own, and I don't think I need to delve into that one. But the treatment that Gunther Steiner received, I mean, after 10 years, you're expecting some level of respect from the team owner, and to be able to say your final goodbyes to XYZ in the garage, your drivers who have driven very admirably in your name, and so on and so forth. But it just clearly doesn't seem like Gene Haas has that kind of level of respect, and it also goes back to kind of his sacking being the conversations being between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Kind of, it's supposed to that period is supposed to be all about festivities, coming together with your family and enjoying your time, not worrying about your job and how secure it is, etc. But the treatment has been harsh. But what can you do? When your team owner wants to go in a new direction, in quotation marks, you can't really do anything else. You just have to well, I was about to say you have to say your goodbyes, but in Gunther Steiner's case, you can't even say your goodbyes. You just kind of have to move on and kind of just move into a new direction, into a complete new direction, which I'm sure it'll feel weird for Gunther Steiner, but he'll always probably be watching Formula One and how Haas are getting on, due to his loyalties with Haas. So there's probably no hard feelings in for Gunther Steiner, but I'm sure that he will be missing the paddock and his crew, and not even being able to see him is quite shocking, to say a final goodbye.
Yeah, whether he wants the best for Haas or not, I'm not too sure. I'm sure he wants the best for all of the people involved, though, that he worked with over the years. Um, yeah, I don't think that's the last we'll see of Gunther Steiner in the paddock. I think he's going to be back in some capacity with another team. I think he's done a very good job at Haas. Brought them a lot of media attention as well with the Drive to Survive, and he was sort of a cult hero, wasn't he? Really. Au Komatsu takes over. I think I'm pronouncing that right, and it means that in the last 2 years, only Mercedes and Red Bull haven't changed their team principle. Which I saw that the other day, and I thought that was a very shocking stat. But that's the way with it. A lot of teams are looking to move in a different direction over these last couple of years, and feel bringing in a new team principle is the way to do it. But if you're looking at the teams that have been dominant over the last 15 years, it's the two longest serving team principals in Toto Wolff and Christian Horner. Obviously, Christian Horner's been there slightly longer, but it just goes to show they're the two dominant forces, and there's a there's a word for sort of a level of consistency in having that team principal who's been there for years and years, and help them achieve success and sticking with them and leading the team forward. So maybe maybe that's partly to do with it. Moving on to we're approaching February. We're approaching pre-season time. So in a little over 2 weeks is when the liveries are launched. So before we get into that, though, McLaren have already launched theirs. What did you think of it? I thought it was a very weird sort of presentation in the whatever it takes, and basically making themselves out to be a bit of a laughing stock and doing whatever it takes to get to the front of the field.
Don't get me wrong, it took me a bit of time to actually see the livery because I wasn't very much on it. And it was obviously we're recording on the 19th and it was released on the 16th. Um, and don't get me wrong, I do like the livery, but it was just what I don't know whether I'm gonna make a few McLaren's fans a bit butthurt, but I'm gonna say that they overhyped it a little bit. And I think a lot of McLaren fans, and me included, as a Ferrari fan, we were expecting a little bit of a Chrome to be back for this season. Everybody was just hoping that the Chrome would be back and McLaren would be back to their kind of glory days, if you want to say. But it's essentially just orange with a little bit more black again. It's I mean, most of it is orange still. It's still papaya. Um, but they've just added more black. It's kind of like a thicker black stripe now, down the kind of main body of a car, instead of obviously the little black stripes that we've got. All in all, I don't think it's a bad livery. I'm not opposed to it. I really, really don't mind it. I mean, we've had the blue, we've had the full orange, we've had the orange and black, and I would have preferred for it to be back to kind of papaya and chrome, as we saw in I can't remember what race where they ran papaya and chrome. I want to say it was Silverstone, but I might be wrong.
I think it was Silverstone. Yeah, it's to be fair, I had to actually compare it to the 2023 livery because I couldn't tell much difference. I'm not gonna lie, it is slightly different. They haven't got that bit of blue on there, which I think it makes it look slightly better. But I think the announcement was very strange. But they're trying to hype up their fans, make a big deal out of it. That's not their car launch though. Their car launch is on the 14th of February. So very strange one. A quick rundown of the rest of the livery dates. So on the 5th of February, we have Sauber and Williams. Alpine on the 7th. Haas on the 11th of February. The 12th of February is Aston Martin. The 13th for Ferrari. On the 14th, you've got Mercedes and McLaren. And the 15th, we've got Red Bull. And Visa Cash App RB is yet to announce their livery date. I just want to get your take on that name for AlphaTauri.
What was it again? I've honestly.
It's Visa Cash App RB or Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. I'm not too sure. It's yet to be confirmed, but that's what the speculation is.
What the actual? I think that's kind of my response. Visa Cash App RB.
Yep. And then you've also got, what is it, Kick F1 Stake Sauber team. So we've got a couple of interesting names coming into this new season, which are absolutely shocking.
Are you being serious?
They're the names of
I've heard of the Alfa Romeo. Oh, well, Alfa Romeo. I beg your pardon. The Sauber one. And that one's these. Are you being serious?
Yep.
That's what it's speculated to be. Visa Cash App RB.
That's what I've heard it's going to be. Yes,
Why can't they just go back to Toro Rosso?
it would be better. Yeah, but
Or like, what else could there be? But because realistically, these are Cash App RB. Nobody's gonna call them that. Nobody's gonna remember them as that.
no. I
Everybody's
mean,
gonna
they've only
either
just
call them.
been people have only just started calling them AlphaTauri, not Toro Rosso.
Everybody's gonna either call them now Toro Rosso or AlphaTauri. Nobody's gonna bother with. Oh, I see the Visa card Cash App. RB of Yuki Tsunoda flying past Charles Leclerc. Nobody's going to say that. No one's
No,
going to say that. Realistically, what on earth are Alpha? I'm still going to call them AlphaTauri. I'm not calling them Visa Cash App, whatever, Cash Card, Cash Cow, whatever. I don't care. I'm not calling them that. I simply refuse due to the basis of there's so many. I guarantee you, it's purely down to them having so many sponsors. It's the same with Sauber. Kick F1 stake Sauber team. Really? Why do you need? Why do you need? I think that's two sponsors in your name because Kick is one and Stake is another. Why do you need two sponsors in your name? Why? What's the
extra
point?
money, isn't it? It's extra money.
Yeah, okay, I get it's extra money, but why can't you simply put it on the racing car? That's money in itself. The car goes round and round in circles. It gets broadcasted on TV. Your brand is there on show. F1 is seriously turning to be all about money, isn't it?
What do you mean turning? It's already been all about money, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what I mean. You're gonna have Ferrari gonna be called soon. Bet365 Red Scuderia top trumps Ferrari. I don't know. Seriously, it's it's bamboozling why we can't have just normal standard team names like we did in the good old days, like Sauber, like Jaguar or Red Bull, if you wanna go a bit further out down the line, and Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri's fine. A Scuderia AlphaTauri is completely fine. Why do they need to change their identity completely? I don't understand that.
Well, there we go. Yeah, you never know, do you? Um, so it may not, the 2024 season may not have even kicked off yet, but we'll just have a little quick look forward to 2025 because there are about 13 drivers who have got their contracts expiring at the end of this season. I'll
Not
give a quick
about. There
rundown.
is 13. There is 13.
13, yeah. I'll give a quick rundown before we go into a bit more detail. So you've got Sergio Perez, Alonso, both Ferrari drivers, Leclerc and Sainz, both Alpine drivers in Gasly and Ocon, Alex Albon, both AlphaTauri drivers in Sonoda and Ricciardo, and then you've got Bottas, Zhou, Hulkenberg, and Magnussen as well. So in fact, the only drivers that have their contracts secure for 2025 is Verstappen, two Mercedes drivers, and then I think the two McLaren drivers as well. I think they're the only drivers that have got a contract for past next season. It's going to be an interesting, silly season in the summer break, isn't it?
Get all the F2 drivers in. Come on. This is the right opportunity to kind of bed the F2 drivers that have done so well. So your Felipe Drugovich, your Teo Pourchaire, your Liam Lawson, your Ayumu Iwasa, who else I'm trying to think of? Even maybe Richard Vishaw gets a shout in there as an honourable mention. Maybe even your Nick De Vries, haha, joke's like. Um, but I think it's the right time to kind of put the Ollie Behrman as well. How can I forget about Ollie Behrman? He's a British driver. How can I forget about him? But I think this is the best opportunity that any F2 driver will get to make a stake, to stake a claim, should I say, for an F1 seat with 13 drivers set to be out of contract at the end of this upcoming season. I mean, obviously the two Ferrari drivers are in talks already to have their contracts extended, and I think it's a no-brainer to have them extended. But then you look further down the line, is Fernando Alonso wanted to drive past 2024? You don't know. Lance Stroll, his contract's unknown due to his father. Um, father's ties with the team, so you don't know whether he's going to be past 2024. The two Haas drivers, Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, they could be gone as well. Sergio Perez, is it Daniel Ricciardo's chance? If it's Daniel Ricciardo's chance, then there's openings at AlphaTauri. So it's going to be a very, very, very silly season. The it's going to be speculation after speculation, rumor after rumor. But that's going to likely happen during the summer break. And I think most teams um are looking at this season of being a potential. I wouldn't say make or break, but it's the third season of kind of the new spec of cars, isn't it? So I don't know whether they're thinking of kind of third time lucky, third time's the charm with the drivers or something like that, just to see how well they can perform in kind of the new upgraded machinery that they're going to have, or anything like that. But it's a lot of drivers will be on edge. I mean, for example, Logan Sargent was on edge until right until the very end, and he obviously managed to book his seat in F1 once again. But it's just going to be down to how the drivers drive, how they race, how many points they score, and it's just going to be for every single one that has a contract running up. It could be a make or break season, and we could see a lot of moves in and out of teams.
Well, actually, I've got two other drivers, so it's actually 15 drivers because Lance Stroll and Logan Sargent. Well, 14 because we know Lance Stroll is going to stay for forever until he's 18 in a wheelchair. But Logan Sargent has also got his contract expiring at the end of 2024, and actually only two drivers have a contract past 2025, and that's Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. So going into the new sort of spec starting from 2026, only Norris and Verstappen are confirmed in their current seats. So it'll be interesting with 18 of the 20 drivers with less than 2 years left on their contract, with new regulations coming across, whether they do decide to gamble on a rookie in 2025 and have that settling in period for a year before the new regulations, and what happens there. I think, like you said, the Ferrari drivers are set to be renewed. I think Leclerc is going to be sort of a 3 or 4 year contract. Sainz is going to be a 2 year contract, possibly. One of the more interesting ones I think is going to be Alex Albon. Obviously, he's had a brilliant season last year with Williams. Does he stick with Williams if they continue to move forward, or does he look for a seat further ahead? What does Alex Albon have on the cards, do you think?
It all depends on how the Williams performs once again. If it performs how it performed in 2023 and it's getting points fairly consistently, then I don't see why not he kind of keeps his faith in the team and their progression further. But as a driver, I think Alex Albon sort of has to grow and move on at one point or another. Similar to what Pierre Gasly did, I think, staying with AlphaTauri for so long, after AlphaTauri, yeah, for so long, and then getting that big move to Alpine. Obviously, I don't know whether Alpine will be the right move for Pierre Gasly, for Alex Albon. I think there's still going to be two Frenchmen there after this season. But maybe in Aston Martin comes knocking if Fernando Alonso decides to call it a day after this season. And I do see that as a step forward. Um, but it's down to driver and team. I think Red Bull kind of still have ties with Alex Albon, but does he go back after what happened? Williams love Alex Albon to bits, and they'd obviously want him to stay. But if they don't progress further enough, do they keep him? It's let's not start silly season just yet. But Alex Albon definitely needs a step forward rather than backwards. Similarly to Pierre Gasly, what happened with Pierre? It's just a case of timing it correctly for Alex Albon, and if he does get that big move, it might be to a big team like a Mercedes, like a Ferrari. You never know. I don't know if he goes back to Red Bull after what happened, but we'll have to wait and see. But Alex Albon definitely does need a step up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think as long as Williams continue to show that progression, and I think James Vowles is the right guy to take that team forward. You look at the improvement they've had just this season. It's they've been moving in the right direction. If they continue to do that, I don't see there's a reason that necessarily Alex Albon has to go. Right? Because is there an obvious step forward? You look at ahead of Williams. Obviously, the McLaren drivers locked in. Mercedes drivers are locked in. It's looking like the Ferrari drivers are as well. So in that top tier of team, Aston Martin, is that more of a sideways step or is it a big enough step forward? There's only that Red Bull seat, and I don't think he would go back to Red Bull after what happened. Maybe there could be a shock on the cars, like he ends up at Ferrari or something like that, which would be a silly season living up to its name. But I'm not sure if there's necessarily a step forward, and there is a risk from both driver and team if they, wait too long to make a decision that another driver will fill that space or that driver will move to another team. If someone like a Haas wait too long on deciding whether Nico Hulkenberg gets a contract, he may decide, you know what, I'm going to go to Sauber or I'm going to go to Alpine. Who knows? There is that risk, of course. I don't think Fernando Alonso only has 1 year left in him. I've got a feeling he's going to stick around for a couple more years, see if he can get a few more wins, a few more podiums. And obviously, he wants that third world title. I think he started this season, or started last season, should I say, really sparked his the hunger and desire in him once again. And it did give him that fuel with getting those podiums. But moving on from silly season to wrap up this episode, we're gonna, you quizzed us in this last episode, so I've got a bit of a quiz for you in this one. So it's a higher or lower quiz. So I will give you a driver, and then I'll tell you the name of another driver, and you have to say whether that second driver has more or less race starts than the previous one.
Oh, okay.
So, speaking of Alex Albon, he's the first driver. He has 82 race starts.
Okay.
Esteban Ocon, does he have more or less?
Higher. Esteban Ocon, thinking about Mana, Alpine, Renault. Yeah, higher. Easily. Higher.
It is higher. He's on 133.
Okay.
So that's 1 point. Heikki Kovalainen.
Heikki Kovalainen. Lotus. Yeah, I'd McLaren. Yeah, we'll go higher. We'll go higher. We'll go higher.
It's lower. He's on 112. So
wow. Okay.
He's only passed him recently this season or in 2023. But
Wow.
I thought you'd go lower with that one. I thought when maybe with that Lotus spell, sort of in 2014, 2015 time. Antonio Giovinazzi. Does he have more or less than 112 race starts?
No, I don't think so. You're only thinking with Antonio with Alfa Romeo, and how many seasons did you do with them? 3, 4, max, 20 races. Yeah, lower, surely lower.
Yeah, 62. It's quite a big jump down. Kamui
Yeah.
Kobayashi.
Kamui. Wow. Who did Kamui race with? Well, he was with Sauber, the main one. And how many seasons did he do with Sauber? I'll go with higher on this one. I'll go with higher.
It is higher, but it's not as high as I was thinking. He's only got 76 race starts. I thought he had a similar number to Kovalainen, about just over 100.
Yeah, I think Kamui's a weird one, I think. Because some people think that he's been in the sport for ages, but I generally just think of kind of his when I think of Kamui Kobayashi, I just think of kind of the Sauber days, kind of the good old Sauber days, and I generally don't think that Kamui sticks in my mind that much. That's the only reason I kind of went
Well,
like
he
that.
did have that extra year, didn't he? In around, I think it was 2012. Was it for someone like Marussia or someone like that? He had an extra
It
year.
might have been, yeah, it might have been
So
actually.
that's only sort of 4 or 5 years for Kobayashi. Roman Grosjean should be a nice, easy
Um,
one for you.
so Roman Grosjean, it's a nice easy one because you think Lotus. He obviously had his Haas days, so it's obviously higher.
It is 181, so over double.
Ooh, bloody
Next
hell.
up is Sergio Perez.
Ooh, Sergio Perez. Well, Sergio Perez has been in the sport for forever. He's been in the sport since about 2010, and he's been in the sport for what? It's going to be season number 14, 15 for Sergio, so it's got to be higher.
It is 261.
Yeah, come on.
Daniel Ricciardo,
Ooh, DR. More or less than how many?
261.
261. I don't think he's got more. I'm going lower.
It is. Only 240 though, so there's not much difference.
Hey, come on.
Next up, Felipe Massa,
240 for ball figure.
240 to beat.
Felipe Massa. Well, he was at his only team, I believe, was Ferrari. And how many races did he do with them? You know what? I'm gonna go lower again.
It's not, it's higher. He's got 272. So he had that spell at Ferrari, took a couple years out, and then he went to Williams, didn't he? And was there,
Oh
and he seemed to
yeah, I
keep going
forgot
on at
about
Williams, didn't he?
Williams. I forgot about Williams. Goodness sake.
So 272. Jenson Button next.
Uh, well, he was in the sport from the early 2000s with BR Honda, McLaren. Who else have you got? Well, he kind of stuck with McLaren, didn't he? Let's go with higher. Why not? Let's go with higher.
It is higher, 309 for
Yes,
Jenson
come
Button.
on.
And finally, Sebastian Vettel. Does he have more than 309?
Yes, of course he does. Of course he does.
He does not. He does
He
not.
doesn't.
He has 300 race entries. He has
Oh.
299 race starts, which was that whole thing about him coming back for a race at the start of last season when
Mm.
Lance Stroll had that injury. But he has 300 Grand Prix entries, so for the entire weekend. Um,
Mm.
so that's 7 out of 10. It's not bad going. It's not bad going. You had a good
That's good,
spell in the
but
middle there. You did it.
it's
Had
good.
a good effort. Um, but so yeah, that 7 out of 10. I thought I'd get a bit of payback on you for last week with that quiz. But that is everything for this week in On the Grid podcast. Thank you all for listening. Season 4, episode 2. We'll be back next week, and Freak will continue to preview the new season over the next few weeks before we have pre-season testing at the end of February. Thank you all for listening, and goodbye.